Sometimes the biggest lies are the ones you never question. One of these stories really happened. The other, it's been bent, just a little. Think you're sharp enough to tell the difference? Keep watching and choose carefully. This is Truth or Trick.
Okay, imagine this. You're completely alone, hundreds of miles from anywhere, anyone, and you're in the harshest place on Earth.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the starting point for the story we're looking at today.
Right. We're doing a deep dive into the incredible survival story of Douglas Mawson, the Australian explorer, Antarctica, 1912.
It's harrowing stuff. We've been going through the expedition accounts, the journals,
Yeah.
trying to really understand the reality of it.
Yeah. Pull out the most shocking details, the insights into just what humans can endure.
So the setup is Mawson heads out with two companions, Belgrave Nennis and Xavier Mertz. They're charting unknown land in East Antarctica.
Standard exploration mission, you'd think. Mapping, science.
Exactly. But Antarctica, well, it had different ideas. Only a few weeks into their sledging journey, disaster strikes.
Horrifically sudden, wasn't it? Ninnis just disappears.
Vanishes down a hidden crevasse, and the main sledge goes with them. Most of the food, the tent, 6 of their best dogs.
Yeah.
Gone.
Just gone. Instantly changing everything.
Completely. They're stranded. Supplies critically low, no way to call for help, just ice and wind for hundreds of miles back to base.
The shock must have been immense, staring into that emptiness.
And facing an immediate, terrible reality. They had to make a choice to survive.
This is where it gets really grim. The remaining dogs.
Yeah. They had to start killing them for food. Using, everything. Boiling skin, the paws, anything. They were starving.
Just brutal necessity. But then even that turns against them.
It does. There's a hidden danger they couldn't have known. Dog liver, especially husky liver, has incredibly high levels of vitamin A, toxic levels.
Hypervitaminosis A, so the very thing they needed to survive.
Starts poisoning them. Mertz, who apparently ate more of the liver, perhaps because he found the muscle tissue tougher, he starts getting really sick.
The accounts mentioned delirium, skin problems, then paralysis.
That's right. Tragically, Mertz dies, leaving Mawson utterly alone.
One man, still over 300 miles from base, barely any supplies, dragging a makeshift sled.
And the physical toll. It's almost unbelievable. His own descriptions and later accounts talk about skin peeling off in sheets, hair falling out.
His feet. Didn't he say the soles were practically flapping loose?
Yeah, black with frostbite,
Yeah.
necrotic. He wrote something like they felt like loose rubber as he walked. How he kept going is just staggering.
Rationing tiny bits of food, melting snow, and the candle wax thing. Is that actually true?
It seems so. Candle wax,
Yeah.
it's mentioned in the sources. Think about it, minimal calories, obviously, but it was something solid.
Not nutrition, just desperation. Something to put in your stomach.
It really underscores the absolute extremity of his situation. Finding anything at all to consume.
So after, 30 days alone like this, he finally makes it back towards the base camp?
He sees it. Hut Point. And then he sees the ship.
The rescue ship, sailing away.
Sailing away. He'd missed it by only a few hours. Can you imagine?
Oh, crushing. Just absolutely crushing. After everything, the accounts say he just collapsed.
And who wouldn't? But amazingly, there was a small party left behind. They'd stayed on, sort of a last-minute decision, in case Mawson's party returned late.
They found him.
They found him, nursed him back from the brink.
Yeah.
But he had to stay there, recovering, for a whole extra year until the ship could return.
An entire year. So he survived, but broken, scarred, but alive.
He made it back. It's just this unbelievable saga. Sudden loss, eating dogs, the vitamin toxicity, the physical disintegration, eating candle wax, and the missing rescue by hours.
It really pushes you to ask, what does a story like Mawson's tell you about resilience? About our absolute limits when pushed?
Yeah, what are people capable of when, facing death itself?
And think about those hidden dangers, like the food source being toxic or the timing of the ship. How much relies on things you just can't predict or control?
Exactly. How do those unknown variables mess with even the most careful plans? It makes you wonder, what unexpected candle wax might someone need to find, metaphorically speaking, to get through their own challenges?
Something to definitely mull over.
Okay, let's dive in. Today we're unpacking some sources you shared, and they focus on, something pretty extraordinary. It's about a man who just decided to walk across the world for a mission.
Yeah, this figure, Jean Béliveau, they call him the Walking Man. He set off from Montreal, back in 2000.
And the material you sent over, It makes it clear pretty fast that his motivation wasn't, running away from something or even trying to set some kind of world record.
Exactly. It wasn't about fame or pushing physical limits in that competitive sense.
Right. What he actually said he wanted to do, according to these sources, was really simple. Almost. Yeah, disarmingly pure. Just see the world on foot. And while he was doing it, promote peace, nonviolence.
And the really striking thing right at the start is how little he had. The sources say no sponsors, nothing like that.
Yeah, just a 3-wheel cart, basically, carrying essentials, a few clothes.
Yeah.
And just this incredible will to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
So this deep dive, it's really our chance to look into the key parts, the surprising bits from the material about this journey. It lasted a decade.
Incredible. It wasn't just like a long walk. It sounds more like a deep dive into the world itself, mile by mile.
And when you say miles, the scale is just enormous. These sources, they spell it out. This wasn't, a quick jaunt.
11 years. That's what it took. 11 years to finish. He crossed 6 continents, went through 64 countries. Just try to picture the sheer variety in that. Landscapes, people, cultures.
Absolutely. And the sources, they don't ignore the tough stuff, the practical side. They mention he wore out 54 pairs of shoes.
54.
Yeah, just that one detail. It gives you a real kind of visceral feel for the physical effort involved, doesn't it?
Totally. And he had to rely on people, strangers, for help. Finding places to sleep, police stations, monasteries. Sometimes it's just people opening their homes.
And the sources are clear. It wasn't some, scenic, easy walk the whole time.
No way. He went through deserts, conflict zones, apparently, tricky mountain passes. The dangers were real. The material mentions being mugged, nearly hit by trucks, getting really sick with food poisoning. It really paints a picture of resilience, but born from constant, sometimes really dangerous situations.
The sources do touch on that comparison you might think of, like a real-life Forrest Gump, maybe, just walking.
Yeah, right, I saw that.
But they quickly pivot away from that. They stress this wasn't some quick movie montage. It was the sustained, difficult reality day after day for more than 10 years. That difference is really key, according to the material.
That consistency. It's just remarkable. And after all that, enduring everything, his return to Montreal in 2011, the sources describe quite the scene.
Yeah, cheering crowds, media.
And his wife was there waiting. She'd been his sort of anchor from afar through the whole thing, this massive undertaking.
The final count, based on the sources, is over 250,000 miles walked.
250,000 miles.
Yeah. And to help you grasp that, material points out it's like walking around the Earth 10 times.
10 times.
It really is one of the longest, most focused solo journeys ever documented, seems like.
And looking back, the source material gives us a really powerful reflection from Béliveau himself. He said the journey, it shifted.
How so?
It started as, looking outward, seeing the world outside him. But it turned into a journey about discovering what was inside the world. And maybe even more, what was inside himself.
Ah, that internal shift. The sources suggest that was just as important as the physical distance he covered.
Exactly, which leads to this really thought-provoking point the material raises right at the end.
Right. It calls the whole thing an epic odyssey, a global mission, but then it adds this little twist. It suggests it was perhaps a step too far.
A step too far. That phrase just hits you, doesn't it? After hearing about the purpose, the resilience, the peace mission.
Yeah, it makes you stop and think.
The source doesn't just celebrate it. It kind of nudges you to think about, well, what were the hidden costs, the sacrifices, or maybe just the complicated nature of these huge personal quests, even the noble ones.
It definitely leaves you wondering about that line, between an incredible act of will and maybe the toll it takes, a balance the material seems to think is worth considering.
All right, you've heard both stories. A brutal Arctic survival and an epic walk across the Americas. One of them is completely true. The other, it's mostly true, with one clever lie hiding inside. So what's your guess? Drop it in the comments. Which story was the trick? We'll reveal the answer right now. So, which one fooled you? The story of Douglas Mawson, the man who survived Antarctica on candle wax and sheer will? That one's completely true. Every brutal detail, the hidden crevasse, the toxic dog liver, the skin peeling from his feet, even missing the rescue ship by just hours, it all really happened. Mawson's survival remains one of the most harrowing tales in exploration history. But the story of Béliveau, the man who walked the world to promote peace, that's the trick. Yes, Jean truly did walk across 6 continents over 11 years. But we slipped in a lie you might have missed. We claimed he walked 250,000 miles, enough to circle the Earth several times. In reality, his journey was closer to 46,000 miles, still incredible, but not physically impossible. So if that number felt a little too epic, good instincts. Want the full sources? They're linked in the description. And be sure to subscribe. Next time, we've got 2 more stories lined up. 1 true, 1 trick.